Create a Quilt As You Go placemat using the Quilt in the Hoop app. You'll need 30 assorted fabrics cut 2 by 7.5 inches for each placemat. 6 squares of batting large enough to fit the hoop you'll need to use for the 6.5-inch design. 6 9-inch squares of backing. Fabric strips for binding about 2 yards per placemat. An AccuFeed, dual feed, or walking foot. Lightweight thread for piecing. Wash-away thread. Quilting thread for the final quilting design. These items are optional. Monofilament thread, clear or dark depending on your fabrics. Elmer's washable school glue. The Janome quilt binder. The Janome edge guide foot. Our sample was made with a jelly roll containing the Moda Rising Tide Batiks collection. I created a collection of the batik fabrics used in this project and named it Placemat. You may wish to do this with the fabrics you've chosen. Open Quilts and tap the plus to start a new quilt. Title this quilt Placemat. Select the medium block size. Change the width to 3 and the height to 2. Touch Edit and any square. Scroll down to strip block number 16. Tap each fabric section and assign it a new fabric from your fabric stash or collection. Tap Done. Tap another square and again select the fabrics that you want in that block. Continue selecting your chosen fabrics for each of the 6 blocks. I've rotated 3 of the blocks to create a pattern. You may wish to do this as well. Tap the Edge Fabrics block. Tap the first border. It will have a small check mark in the lower left corner. Select a fabric for the border. Change the width to 1/2 inch to see how it will look with just a binding. Tap Done. Tap Save. Now let's see what this could look like in a larger quilt. Tap the Copy Mode button, OK, the Placemat, and Yes. The placemat includes the binding. This opens a copy of the placemat in the quilt editing page. Tap the Border 1 fabric to open the Quilt Edge editor. Tap the Border 1 fabric. Now you have the option to remove this fabric. Tap the red Remove Selected Items button and Done. Increase the block width to 4 and the height to 6. Tap on the On Point switch. The height changes to 7, so the bottom row will have the same number of blocks as the first row. In an On Point layout, each time you tap height, it adds 2 more rows. The finished size is 36.8 by 46. Tap Copy and one of the blocks. It's difficult to tap in just the right spot when the blocks are on point without getting the block next to it. Place 2 fingers on the screen and slide apart to expand the area between the blocks. Copy this block by tapping any blocks in the layout. Continue copying different blocks. Tap Rotate to change the direction of any blocks. Tap Preview. There are a couple of blocks that need to be turned. Tap Done. Then tap the blocks that need to be rotated. Tap Preview to check the layout, then tap Done. Tap the Edge Fabrics block. Tap Triangles and then a fabric. The triangles around the blocks display this fabric. Each time you tap the Triangles button, you can choose a different fabric. You can choose from a collection, the fabric stash, or the color palette. Add borders by tapping the first border and a fabric. Tap a second border and fabric. Adjust the size of the border with the plus and minus keys. Tap the border a second time to change the fabric choice. Tap the third border. When you're happy with the choices, tap Done. Change the title to Placemat Quilt and tap Save. Tap the original placemat, tap Sew, and any block to download the design. Save or transfer the design to get it to your machine. Hoop only the batting. My pieces were too small to fit the hoop, so I used painter's tape on the back and stuck the batting down. Other quilters have different methods of securing the batting. Thread the needle and bobbin with lightweight thread. Stitch the first color, which is the map for the block. Place the first fabric right side up, covering section 1, which is the center strip. Stitch the positioning line. Place the second fabric right side down with the edges even. Stitch, open, and press. Stitch the next positioning line. Place the next fabric right side down with edges matching. Stitch, open, and press. Continue for the 5 fabrics. Remove the hoop from the machine, but do not remove the fabric from the hoop. Turn the hoop over. Here you can see the painter's tape. Center the backing right side up over the stitching line. Tape the corners in place. Turn the hoop right side up. Rethread the needle and bobbin with wash-away thread. Stitch the outline. Remove the hoop and check to make sure the backing is held securely in place. Rethread the machine with a bobbin thread to match your backing and the needle with a thread for quilting. Tap the quilting button to select a quilting design. Choose the medium size. Select a quilting design from the available designs. we chose loops in a square. Transfer the design to the sewing machine. Stitch the quilting design. Do not stitch the outline. Repeat for each of the remaining 5 blocks. Lay out the blocks and number them. Add arrows to show the outside edges since these will be cut differently. Choose your technique for assembly. Here are 2 that I use. One is adding fabric strips to the back and stitching the edges. A second method is using a blind hem technique on the back. For either method, you first trim the outside edges of the blocks to 1/4 inch through all layers. These are the edges with the arrows on them. For the strip method, rethread the machine with monofilament in the needle and bobbin. Trim the edges without an arrow by folding back the top and trimming the batting and backing up to the stitching line. Trim the top fabric to 1/4 inch. Place 2 blocks right sides together, matching the stitching lines. Stitch on the stitching line. Press the seam open. Cut fabric strips about 1 3/8 inch wide. Fold the long edges to the center and press. Center a strip over the seam line. I like to use a little glue to hold it in place. Stitch both edges of the strip with a serpentine stitch. From the right side, the stitching blends with the fabric. If you're using the blind hem method, turn the block wrong side up. Dampen the stitches slightly and pull the backing away from the seams that are not trimmed. Tape in place, then turn right side up. Trim the batting next to the seam. The trimmer 2 by George makes this easier. Trim the top to 1/4 inch from the stitching line. Unfold the backing. Trim the remaining edges to 1/2 inch from the stitching line. Stitch the blocks right sides together, matching the seams. Be careful not to stitch the backing into the seam. Trim one edge of the backing to a little less than 1/4 inch. Press it flat. Fold the remaining edge under 1/4 inch and then fold over the top of the first edge. Hold in place with a little Elmer's washable school glue. Attach the border guide foot or whatever you have that is similar. Select the blind hem or a narrow 2-step zigzag. Fold the blocks right sides together with a fold at the edge. The folded fabric should be on the bottom. Align the stitch in the guide so the left swing of the needle catches both layers and the right swing stitches off the fabric. This is how it looks from the back. Continue assembling all the blocks. Use your favorite method to bind the edges. I use the Janome quilt binder with the optional 8mm attachment. A video demonstrating how it is used can be found in the library section of the app. Please post your placemats on the Quilt in the Hoop Facebook page and give us feedback.